order the regular meeting of the Planning Commission of the City of California, Wednesday, March 6th, 2019. Can we have Pledge of Allegiance? Would you do that honor, Jim?
Be honored. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Kaczynski is not present. He is attending the Planning Commissioners Academy in Long Beach. Commissioner Talley?
Here.
Commissioner Wu is also not present this evening. He is attending the Planning Commissioners Academy as well. Chair Pro Tem Blackwell is not present. Vice Chair Rulin?
Here.
And Chair Crandall?
Here. Okay, the next item is special orders of business, and we have none. The next item is the minutes, approval of the minutes, and the first will be the minutes for the regular study session meeting of February 6, 2019. Do we have any changes or a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the study session meeting of February the 6th, 2019.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 4-0.
One abstention?
Yes. That's fine.
Chair Barton, it does not look like we have a quorum in order to approve.
Did we have somebody
Because
not
I
at
was
that
absent.
meeting?
I have to abstain.
Thank you very much. Okay. Do we need to rescind the motion and vote?
We can just push that to the next meeting.
We will push that to the next meeting. Does that also occur on the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so...
But I do have some changes to the minutes. Can I?
we will do that at the next meeting when we vote on it. So all parties will be present.
Will that be prior to the city council hearing on the leaf blower amendment? Because I want to make sure our
Can
minutes
they,
are properly.
that's a question, can they hear it before our minutes are approved?
They approved them last night.
We have.
They usually prove them.
For the record, can we have him voice his comments,
A commissioner
but
can
not take the
certainly give
vote on it?
suggestions regarding the minutes, and those can be considered by the recording secretary. There's no problem with that. We just
Okay.
can't vote on that.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so.
Voice your corrections.
My, I guess, clarifications were on the third paragraph, starting with Adam Atamian, the code compliance manager. I think it's important to have the number of complaints, and if memory serves, I think that was 12 complaints that he had received. Oh, that's on page 2?
I think it was 11, actually.
Okay, I had 12 and I didn't go look at the tape. And he also added to that the majority were from contractors.
He did?
Are you agreeing?
I'm agreeing.
The two more paragraphs down, it was Brian DeLay, resident. I think it's important to add, which was, he expressed later on that he lives in a HOA. I think that provides color because the next gentleman did not live in an HOA. If you go to page 3, second bullet point from the bottom was that commented that none of the testimony received indicated that people would be happier with electric-powered leaf blowers. I don't recall that being made, and that directly conflicts with the testimony that was stated on the prior page from Ken, which said he would prefer a total ban, but he'd suffice with electric only.
Okay.
And then I just want to make sure that, let's go to page 4.
So I would remove that one.
Check the
Check the,
audio or video if you can to verify that that's clear.
I don't recall that statement being made, but I would prefer that to be checked. And then on page 4, on the amended as follows, underneath the item number 2, it was homeowners of single-family residence shall be exempt exempt from the restrictions contained herein, provided they use all electric blowers for less than 10 minutes in duration.
Any others?
Yeah,
That was my changes.
Okay, those will be entered into the minutes. And Commissioner
The
Ruin.
thing I would say to that is, that's just direction. It's not, that's not necessarily the language
That
that
was-
was used in the, to actually amend the,
So,
that's all I'm saying.
okay, but the language that we used was actually amended into the proposed,
Conditions of approval, or whatever.
well, no, to the
Right.
proposed
Ordinance.
zoning amendment. That was actually what was sent up, was the language that we used, correct? That language, the zoning, the resolution actually had changed language in it before it went to council, correct?
Yes, and it would not necessarily be this.
Okay.
That's all I'm trying to say. This is just a general idea
Okay,
of what
sorry.
you were, but it's okay, I can put it in there.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ruin.
I did have one comment again. This is page 4, item 2. I saw that this only applies to single-family residences. I don't remember us calling them out specifically. Did we do that?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the language. All right, thank you.
Okay, we will not take a vote on,
From that report, actually, that we received in the packet, because it talked about another city that had an exemption for homeowners of single-family residences.
okay. So since we are moving these forward to the next meeting, we will not take a vote on the minutes. The next item is oral and written communications. Members of the audience may address the commission on matters of public interest which pertain to the city and are not otherwise on the agenda. If you wish to speak, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and city of residence, and make your presentation. Please limit your presentation to 3 minutes. Do we have any cards for oral communications? Very good. The next is consent calendar. We have none. And now we'll go to the public hearing. The public hearing process includes a staff presentation, a presentation by the applicant not to exceed 10 minutes, and public testimony. To facilitate the meeting for all attendees, the public is asked to limit their individual presentations to 3 minutes. Following closure of the public hearing, the Planning Commission will respond to questions raised during the hearing, discuss the issues, and act upon the matter by motion. The first item we have is item A, 108-110 South El Camino Real, conditional use permit 19002, Tamarindo full alcohol. Katie Crockett.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name's Katie, and I'll be presenting item 8A, a request for indoor and outdoor service of full range of alcoholic beverages as an accessory to a restaurant previously approved for beer and wine service. The project site is located at 108 and 110 South El Camino Real in the MU 3.0 zone and the architectural and central business overlays. The site is a 2,874 square foot building on a 4,186 square foot lot, surrounded by commercial and office uses in the downtown core. In 2015, the zoning administrator approved a minor cultural heritage permit and minor conditional use permit, permitting exterior improvements, including an outdoor dining area and beer and wine service indoors and outdoors. That's ABC license type 41. The restaurant improvements are nearly complete, as you can see in the photos, and the applicant is preparing to open for business. Existing exterior conditions are shown there, or at least as of a couple weeks ago. The applicant proposes the indoor and outdoor service of a full range of alcoholic beverages, so that would be switching to an ABC license type 47 for on-site consumption at their restaurant. The proposal does not include a change in operating hours. The restaurant was already permitted to serve beer and wine indoors and in the covered outdoor patio area from 7 a.m. to midnight. Furthermore, the applicant does not request any live music or entertainment or dancing. Staff recommends approval of the request because the use is consistent with the general plan and zoning ordinance. Restaurants are a visitor and pedestrian serving use encouraged in the central business overlay and in general plan policies. The use is compatible with surrounding properties. There are several restaurants permitted to serve alcohol indoors and out with similar approved hours. Code compliance and sheriffs have determined the use can occur without issues if the applicable regulations and conditions are followed. The applicant has reviewed the draft resolution and agrees with the recommended conditions of approval, with one exception they asked for some clarification on. That was condition 7.22. I do have it on the screen. It specifies that no amplified sound shall be used. However, the applicant has requested clarification on whether this includes ambient music played through regular speakers typical of restaurants. Because the ambient music the restaurant would play is not amplified, staff recommends condition 7.22 be modified to clarify the language as shown on the slide. The proposed language was pulled from approved condition number 9 of resolution PC 18-031 for Itchaberry's full alcohol approval. Their full alcohol approval was also for indoor and outdoor consumption. So with that change, the applicant does agree to all of the conditions of approval, but they would request that clarification in that condition. With that, I'm available to answer any questions, and the applicants, Sarah and Pedro Resendez, are also here as well, should you have any questions for them.
Very good. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Talley.
Just on that ambient, or on the amplified sound, if memory serves, and it doesn't always, we had that modified specifically to address this issue, which is they wanted to be able to use, as somebody brought that up on the commission about being able to use just ambient sound, and I think that's where that came about, which was to allow specifically for just kind of background music.
Okay.
And I
Does that
believe it
bring
was
it-
also
Maybe a study
restricted to the interior, not the outside patio. That would be, I think, what I recollect on other
Yeah, that's
jobs
correct.
we discussed.
But that doesn't state that here in the new.
No, but I think we'll get into
Okay, good.
discussion on that. And I had a question on 715. Let's see here. There shall be a minimum of 32 indoor dining seats?
That's correct.
A minimum?
That stems from the provision in the code that allows for outdoor dining seats. So the applicant is allowed to have 16 outdoor dining seats without providing any additional parking, provided that there are 32 indoor dining seats. So we wouldn't, I think the idea there, and I wasn't here when the code was written, but the idea there would be that we wouldn't want to approve a restaurant with only 16 outdoor seats and no indoor seats, because then it would be required to have no parking.
Okay.
So this way, we make
As
sure
long
that
as that's policy and in the
it's in the
ordinance,
code.
that's fine. Okay. Any other questions? Would the applicant like to make a statement?
Good evening. My name is Sarah Resendez. This is my husband, Pedro. We're the future owners of the Tamarindo restaurant, and we just wanted to say that we do agree with all the conditions. Just with that change in 7.22, I don't think we have a huge issue with music not being allowed on the patio. That's not a problem. We just wanted to make sure that we would be able to play some ambient music inside the restaurant. So aside from that, we agree to everything in the conditions. And we just wanted to say we're excited to be open in town. We started off as a gourmet food truck, sourcing locally and doing a lot for other communities in Orange County. Our truck was based out of Irvine. We sourced from local purveyors, did a lot of charity work and such. So we are longtime residents of San Clemente. So we're just happy to be here opening a restaurant where we live and hoping to bring those opportunities here where we're raising our family. So happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Any questions for the applicant? other than thank you very much for investing in our city.
Yes, thank you.
When do you think you'll be open?
We have our final, we've made it through planning, so we're waiting on a landscape approval, which is scheduled for Monday, and then we have our building approval tomorrow. So Robert Ferguson's coming out tomorrow at 8:30, so hopefully after that, we're looking at like a mid-April opening. Thank you.
Wonderful. No other questions? Okay, we will close the presentation portion and open up for public comment. We have 3 cards in no particular order. The first is Eli Heron, or Heron.
Aaron, yep. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm just here to speak on behalf of Sarah and Pedro. They're dear friends of my wife and I. We've lived in San Clemente for almost 10 years now. We can't say enough about them. We're super excited about the restaurant being open, and we just want to encourage the commission. It sounds like it's going pretty well, but encourage the commission to kind of, follow through and help them open up this killer restaurant we're really excited about. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next is Sarah Resendi.
Sorry, that was me. I thought I had the folder.
That's all right. Allison Araujo. Araujo.
Hi, thank you, Commissioners, for hearing me. So I'm a 14-year resident of San Clemente. I served on the Lobo PTA as a treasurer for 2 years, and I just wanted to show up to show my support for both Sarah and Pedro. Super excited for the restaurant to open. They are amazing people. Their kids are great too, and if anything, the commission could do to allow them to grow the herbs that they want to use in their bar in the plants that they planted would be great, because it would be a great way to, reuse resources. So I'm happy to stand up here for them today, and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, we will, any other people that want to speak at this time that did not submit a card? Okay, we will close for public comment, open for discussion. Do we have any discussion?
I mean,
Commissioner Talley?
this sounds great. Do we just want to make at least from my perspective, I'm looking forward to being able to walk up there and eat. Do we want to limit 7.22 to indoor? I think that would be the use of amplified sound. This prohibition does not include televisions, radios, or reasonable background or ambient music utilized inside the restaurant.
Yeah, I'm I worry a little bit about that, because, sometimes we've had restaurants kind of turn into sports bars and that sort of thing, so I'm not quite sure what the standard is. I mean, having a television in there playing in the background, great, but we're kind of saying that having something that runs with the land that says running a television at what volume is okay, so
Well, there's other.
I don't remember us having a condition like this I could be mistaken, but I don't remember us having a condition like this in other restaurants.
I think we did right across El Camino Real at a couple of those ones, because it was a question whether or not they could
JD's.
even have a TV outside in the patio, and the answer was no, they could only have
That was
the sound
JD's
inside.
restaurant.
And we said specifically, they could have a television, but specified it indoors.
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
Okay.
This came up at maybe it was at the study session when we were going through conditions of approval, because I distinctly remember talking about amplified sound, and I remember making a statement that if they announced your table was ready, that would technically be amplified sound, and so I know staff was going to work on how to make it fit the idea, which is we don't want them having, a concert going on, loudspeakers going on inside. So I'm comfortable if we just add or ambient music inside.
Indoors only.
Indoors.
I think going indoors only for
Indoors only,
proper terminology.
and-
And can we, I hate to do wordsmithing, but maybe just to make it clearer that these things are included in in background sound, we could say something like the prohibition does not include reasonable background or ambient music from sources such as televisions, radios.
I want to stay with what we've used before.
Yeah, I think what we
They didn't
can
have any
probably
idea.
do is state this, but give staff direction to see what the wording was on previous approvals. I know there was one, I think that at one time that even excluded disc jockeys specifically, so that wouldn't occur. But I think you know the sense we're looking for.
My concern may be irrelevant. Let me ask our attorney. In your reading of that, is that is that sufficient to kind of keep sound down, that we could have some enforcement over loud televisions and radios?
So the last sentence is really what's important here, right? And so you.
Correct.
You certainly want to add language that would limit this to indoor uses, right? So after does not include, you could include, add indoor use of televisions, radios, or reasonable background or ambient music. The inclusion of those last two terms, reasonable background or ambient music, really qualifies the terms television, radios, right? Because those are qualified by reasonable background or ambient music. That's going to disallow them from using a radio or a television to blast throughout the entire restaurant. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, that's my only concern. So if we just make it indoors, I'm very happy.
So to be clear, the language would be, this prohibition does not include the indoor use of televisions, radios.
Okay, any other discussion? Do we have a motion?
Go ahead.
Let me get to the right page here.
I can make a motion. I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Whoever gets the first page.
I got it.
First.
Go. Okay. I move that we adopt resolution number PC 19-007, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving conditional use permit 19-002, Tamarindo full alcohol. A request to allow full alcohol service for on-site consumption indoors and outdoors at a restaurant located at 108 to 110 South El Camino Real, with the change of condition 7.22 to read, the use of amplified sound, including the electronically amplified sound of live music, human voice, or other sound within a business, restaurant, bar, or other commercial establishment is not prohibited, is not permitted. This prohibition does not include the indoor use of televisions, radios, or reasonable background music or ambient music.
Second.
We have a motion by Rulon, a second by Talley.
Tally has a second, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations and best luck in your business.
Good luck. Look forward to seeing you guys.
Yeah. The next item is agenda item 8B, Shorecliffs Senior Apartments, Architectural Permit 17340, Site Plan Permit 17339, Conditional Use Permit 17338, a request to demolish an existing golf course clubhouse and construct a new 150-unit, 4-story senior apartment complex and new golf course clubhouse at 501 Avenida Vaquero. Our planner presenting this is Amy Stonich.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, and to the Chair and members of the Commission. I'll be providing a brief presentation on the project proposed for Shorecliffs Senior Apartments and Golf Clubhouse. The proposed project includes a request to demolish an existing golf clubhouse, to construct a new 150-unit, 4-story senior apartment complex where the existing driving range is located, and to construct a new golf clubhouse at 501 Avenida Vaquero. In 2017, a specific plan amendment was adopted to change the project site from a resort hotel to residential high-density land use. This amendment was needed to make the Forester Ranch specific plan consistent with the residential high-density designation and standards in the city's general plan. The neighboring community of Shorecliffs were supportive of the new land use designation to accommodate a senior housing site. The same surrounding community has been supportive of the project as proposed as well. In fact, there's a letter of support before you tonight from the property owners adjacent to the clubhouse. The project consists of a total of approximately 8 acres. The apartments are proposed on the 6-acre portion of the site and the clubhouse on the 2-acre portion. A lot line adjustment was processed to create the lots, and as you see them today. Both sites are accessed by the drive aisle at Avenida Vaquero. An easement for access to the apartment site is required as part of the final map and is conditioned as such. A lot tie agreement for the two parcels that include portions of the golf clubhouse must also be recorded in order to ensure that the parcels of the golf course are not sold off separately. The apartment project has been designed to incorporate Spanish-style architecture, which is consistent with the Forester Ranch specific plan design guidelines. Specifically, the design incorporates terracotta roofing, a cement plaster light sand finish, and architectural features include arches, arcades, inset decorative ceramic tiles, board and batten siding, balconies, metal railings, wood shutters, and wood and metal trellises. Outdoor courtyards and patios will serve residents of the apartment complex, which is consistent with the requirement for common open space. Amenities include a pool and spa, a courtyard with a fire pit and lounge seating, a bocce court, and barbecue. A new dog park is also proposed for the use of the apartment residents. The golf clubhouse is proposed in a single story with a golf cart storage area below. The clubhouse has also been designed in a Spanish-style architecture. It incorporates materials and architectural details that match the senior apartment building. A deck will accommodate outdoor seating for the restaurant inside. Overall, the project has been designed consistent with the site development standards for the Forester Ranch specific plan and the city's zoning code, including all applicable design guidelines. It is below the maximum density allowed. It is far below the maximum lot coverage of 55% at only 19.5% coverage, and is consistent with the height limit of 45 feet. The entire project also meets the minimum number of parking spaces on site, and the only exception is for the number of covered parking spaces for the apartment complex. As is consistent with all new development projects, the proposed Shorecliffs project was routed to DMT on several occasions for input from other city departments and agencies. While there were some outstanding concerns, the project was deemed complete and needed to move forward through the review process. To date, staff has worked with the applicant to include conditions of approval and made some minor revisions to the plans that will ensure the project is developed in accordance with city standards. These plans have been preliminarily reviewed and included in my presentation. An errata sheet is before you tonight, which includes minor changes to the conditions as well. So I mentioned the three minor changes that occurred following publication of the staff report. The applicant provided revised plans which have been reviewed preliminarily. As directed by DMT, the applicant modified the deck so that it wouldn't encroach into the existing storm drain easement. You can see that here in the yellow highlight. Minor modifications were also made to include electric vehicle and handicap parking as required by code. This did not affect the overall number of spaces, and the golf club will maintain 124 spaces as originally proposed. The third piece of information was that there will in fact be a manager's unit on site. The manager will simply reside in one of the units of the apartment complex. This, however, requires an additional parking space. Nevertheless, there is sufficient parking on site for the apartments. A condition of approval has also been included regarding on-site management. As indicated in that prior slide, there is sufficient parking proposed on-site for the project as a whole and for each of the apartment and golf club course uses. Although the number changed slightly with the incorporation of the manager's unit, the apartment complex is consistent with the overall number of parking spaces, in that 181 are required and 182 are proposed. However, there are supposed to have 149 spaces covered, but will only provide 136 covered spaces. The zoning code allows a deviation from this requirement with a parking analysis. The applicant prepared the analysis based on comparable senior housing properties in order to justify that there will be sufficient covered parking spaces. The analysis determined that the actual demand for parking is between 120 to 136 spaces. Since the project provides 136 covered spaces and 182 overall for the apartments, the actual demand can be met. Therefore, staff supports the exception as proposed. Signage proposed as part of the project requires a master sign program to coordinate the design of the signs on site. The proposal includes an entry monument, one wayfinding sign, an apartment project sign, and at this time, just one wall sign for the golf clubhouse. Materials for the monument signs will be in a light sand stucco finish with pin letters and topped with stacked terracotta trim cap. The wayfinding sign will be constructed of a painted metal finish and acrylic cut letters. The size of the signs are smaller than the city's sign code maximums, and the design is consistent with the Spanish-style architecture of the buildings. Therefore, staff is supportive of the signs as proposed. In conclusion, the project has been found consistent with the Forester Ranch specific plan, all applicable design guidelines, and the city's general plan, and is consistent with the site development standards with an exception to covered parking. It is also supported by the surrounding community. The project was subject to CEQA review, and the city's consultant prepared an analysis supporting exemption from CEQA based on section 15183 for consistency with the city's general plan. Should the Planning Commission approve the project tonight with the conditions before you, including the errata sheet, then the project will need to go to Coastal Commission for review prior to final plan check review and issuance of permits. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission determine the project meets the CEQA guidelines section 15183 exemption, which requires the project to be consistent with the development density established by either existing zoning, community plan, or general plan policies for which an EIR was certified, and to adopt resolution PC 19006 with the changes proposed in the errata sheet before you tonight. So with that, I want to thank you for your consideration. I am available for questions. We also have a representative from Public Works here, and the applicant is here and would like to give a brief presentation as well.
Very good, thank you, Amy. Before you step back, Commissioner Talley, did you have some questions about some wording?
I sent an email earlier to regarding some of the conditions of approval, and there's some language in there that discusses that the city shall issue permits and shall approve certain things, and I just wonder if we shouldn't perhaps use the language may instead of shall for that.
If I could just weigh on that quickly, I went through that and agreed initially that it shouldn't say that we shall agree to it. However, it's in the context of timing. So if you were to read the conditions, for example, prior to issuance of a grading permit, and then it goes on to the condition, the applicant shall review, the city shall review and approve, or shall obtain review and approval. It's in the context of the timing. I could give an example.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant to say that the city is bound to do something because may seems to be a much better word for that. I think the grading.
Do you have a specific?
Yeah, let me.
I have one here somewhere.
Yeah, let me find where the prior to issuance of grading permits, the applicant shall submit and the city engineer shall approve. That means they could submit anything and the city engineer shall approve it. It would seem to me that they should submit it and the city engineer may approve it, may disapprove it until corrections are made. That's 3.5.
So those things, the issuance of the grading permits could not happen until it was submitted and approved. If neither of those items happened, then we would not issue the permit.
But here it says the city engineer shall, upon the condition precedent, which is the applicant shall submit, then it says, it's not, and the city engineer shall review and shall approve, it's the city engineer shall approve.
I understand. However, it could not be issued unless the city engineer approved it. But I'll let the city attorney weigh in
And
on
also
that.
check,
Yeah, and maybe that I'm piercing, and I'll defer to council on that 100%.
also look at 4.2, Mel, if you get an opportunity. It's on page 8 of the conditions, or of the resolution, actually.
If you'll let me take a look at those conditions while we move forward, and I can
that'd be
chime
great.
in a few minutes. So that's 3.5 and 4.2 are our examples? Is that
Examples.
correct?
Yes.
Any more?
Well, let's see, the security plan, right, 4.8.
Okay.
I think we're piercing or splitting hairs on this, but I just, let Mel. I'm happy with it.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see, Commissioner Rulon, do you have a question for Amy?
Yeah, on page 3 of the staff report, 3 and 4, you mentioned that there are a number of items that the applicant chose to move forward on, even though staff had some hesitancy with, and then those are being addressed with conditions of approval. It looks like you talked about 3 of them here, such as the change in the deck for the storm drain easement. I just wanted to make sure, is there anything else I saw, for instance, operational characteristics that generate noise concerns, for instance? Did you address, I didn't see anything about that in your presentation, so I want to make sure we see the conditions and are very clear about the conditions that they're asking for that normally we would want to be resolved before we see that. So I'd like to look at that one, and maybe if you've got some set of the conditions of approval that are focused on staff's concerns, those specific staff concerns would be great.
Sure, it's a very good question. And so I have additional slides to clarify. Here, the slide before you addresses the EV or electric vehicle parking as well as handicap parking. In the original the proposal before you in the plans, they did not have this appropriate number of electric vehicles plus handicap. They couldn't overlap. You couldn't have suffice both with one parking space. So they simply reallocated some of the standard parking to electric vehicle. You can see those outlined here. That was a comment from the building division in order to meet building code requirements. Preliminarily, looking at these plans, we've gotten feedback from our plan checker that this would suffice. This, of course, would be re-reviewed during the plan check process, which would come following the time that they go through, Planning Commission review, then Coastal Commission, they come back for plan check. This would be checked at that time. That's the first change. The second was the deck. The deck you'll see here was originally a bit larger. This is the before. This is the after. And although it's hard to see, there is a line that kind of cuts diagonally through, in which this deck has moved back behind so that it does not sit over the top of an existing storm drain easement. Yes. So that was the second change, and the applicant has changed that. We've looked at it preliminarily. However, again, that would be reviewed during plan check and has been conditioned and addressed through those errata conditions.
Very good. Commissioner Brown.
And I'm sorry, I just want to make, that those are the only, are there remaining things that staff had? Because I thought there were like 4 things or something.
There was a third. The third doesn't necessarily, there is a condition, but the manager's unit, in the report, it said that there would not be a manager on site. However, we learned following the publication that there will be. They simply live in one of the existing units, so they're not marked special. They're just on site.
And what about the question about the operational characteristics that may generate noise concerns? You listed that in the staff report as one of those types of concerns that
It has been conditioned through code compliance. With their assistance, we were able to condition it, but it wasn't above and beyond concern. It's been operating as a clubhouse, of course. The difference is you'd have 150 apartment units, but this is zoned for that use.
Okay, and which condition specifically?
On which
For that
comment?
last one, for the noise one.
Oh, okay. So we're going to look at the errata sheet. And as far as a noise specific, there are several noise, some of which address the time. All others refer to our standard conditions, or they are code compliance requirements that are in the code so that they don't exceed the noise ordinance. Let's see.
So you're saying just all of the noise ones taken as a whole?
Yes, yes, there's multiple, and most of them are going to be under operational conditions on your errata sheet. That's going to be following page 5, so page 6 and on.
Area 7, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
That's my question.
Okay, Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns was the staff was not particularly overwhelmingly pleased with the landscaping plan. It's just preliminaries, but you're comfortable with going forward with the conditions you have now as far as landscaping?
We did send this through a conceptual review through our landscape.
Okay, Pat Murphy's bought off on it.
Yes, and he gave a preliminary approval with conditions that had been incorporated into the conditions before you tonight.
Okay. The other thing, yeah, I thank you for the revisions from the email I sent you on clubhouse operations for golf carts and stuff like that. I think the applicant should be a little bit happier now. Because at least now they match what our own municipal golf course does.
That's right. That's right. It was a very good comment.
But I do, 719 is the big noise thing, I think, on page 15. The applicant, including property owners, managers, and understanding all the use of the amplified sound, including electronically amplified sound of music, human voice, or sound within a building or outside or enclosed structure is not permitted under the subject permits. Any application requires application of another conditional use permit specifying use reviewed and approved. So there is no noise, amplified noise authorized with this approval for either facility, the senior facility or the clubhouse. The way you envision this thing is condition is now before us.
So operationally, the clubhouse will operate with a buzzer like you would use at a restaurant for their call times. And although they would have an amplifier, it's not going to be their standard use.
But you don't envision any parties there or amplified sound around that clubhouse as far as subsequent to a golf tournament or anything like that can be used. In other words, that's not permitted and the applicant is happy with that.
Yes, the applicant has indicated that there will not be a live entertainment permit needed at this time, and that in the future, should they want that, they understand the process.
This also includes the senior housing too. In other words, there's nothing addresses any use of that big room or the outdoor pool area along with that big kitchen for amplified sound, senior dances or parties or anything like that. So in other words, the applicant's comfortable with that at this time.
I'll let them speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's it.
Commissioner Talley.
I'm just following up on the amplified sound. I assume there's going to be provisions for them to be able to make announcements on the golf course if there were some type of emergency, and those would be permitted notwithstanding this code section?
Yeah, I'll let the applicant, they have a presentation with some more information on what they intend to do as far as the amplified and the buzzers.
Absent this year, I wouldn't be worried about lightning or other things on the golf course, but it seems like that's all,
yes,
becoming an
yes,
issue.
I'll let them explain their operations.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, would the applicant like to speak?
Mr. Chairman.
I will say while they're walking, yes,
If I may?
Certainly.
Answer the questions that were posed first.
Please.
So, yes, this is for condition 3.5, 4.2, and 4.8, and there are maybe a few others. There's some minor risk that this language could be seen as ministerial language requiring staff, whether it's the city engineer or somebody else, to approve a document or application when not needed. I think there's a very simple fix to this, and that's just to use some passive voice, which I apologize for. But if you look at condition 3.5, my suggested revision would be as follows. It would read, "The applicant shall submit and must receive approval from the city engineer of a precise grading plan, et cetera, et cetera." Therefore, we're not requiring the engineer to approve, but we're requiring the applicant to receive the approval of the city engineer. The same language would apply to the condition in section 4.2 and 4.8, and there are maybe a few others. We could just insert that language if the commission wants that throughout the conditions.
Very good. And could you provide us with that?
Yeah, it's all written.
Or we'll reference your comments
Sure.
at a resolution time.
Sure. For the record, I agree with that proposal by the city.
Very good. And I would like to say, before the applicant makes his comments, Design reviewed this a number of times, spent a lot of time on it, and they came a long ways from what was first presented, and we appreciate you working with the city to come up with a final design. Please.
Thank you very much, Chairman Crandall, members of the commission. Mark McGuire, resident of San Clemente, on behalf of the applicant, Great Star, and the property owners of the golf course. Well, we're very happy to be here presenting tonight. It happens to be my son's birthday. When I started working on this project in 2010 with Fawn and Ruth Leong, he was 13, and today he turns 22. As you may recall, and I can't chew gum and do PowerPoints at the same time, but I'll try to do this. As you may recall, the general plan and zoning designation envisioned in the old general plan was for up to a 500-unit hotel or timeshare facility at 50 feet and 55 feet in height. And in 2010, we started the process to propose instead residential high density with the intention of doing senior housing. We attached ourselves to the general plan update process, got through that in February 2014, and then we amended the specific plan in 2017. Since then, we've been working on the site plan, the building design, et cetera. So I really do mean it when I say we're very happy to be here tonight. I want to thank Amy Stonich, who agreed to see this project through, even though her contact with the city has technically expired. Oh, I guess, again, I got to do this. So that's the concept for the hotel at the time, not that it ever went through design review or the planning commission. So Amy agreed to go through this, see this project through, even though her contract with the city has technically expired. I also want to thank all the members of the development management team and all city staff for their efforts, as there were many details to work through on this project, and we very much appreciate everyone's efforts. We also appreciate those members of the community that discussed the project with us and gave us meaningful input, and we want to thank the members of the Design Review Subcommittee for their input, and we're very proud of the project that we have before you. I want to address those DMT issues that were presented in the staff report up front. I can be fairly quick about it because Amy talked about it, but again, here's a comparison of the original deck and the setback. The timing was that we didn't realize there was a miscommunication breakdown. We did not realize by the time the project was agendized and the public notices went out, we sent over 200 notices out to the neighbors, that was an unresolved issue. We had written a case to think that the setback, that allowing some deck pylons would be okay. It turns out that it's not okay, and so we quickly revised it to setback. And I think that engineering, I hope they're comfortable with it, and we'll have to prove up that it is in fact setback and it's not loading, et cetera, but I think we've satisfied that issue. Here's what a comparison of the elevations, as it's kind of a Where's Waldo, but on the left is the original and on the right is the revised. So I think we've been able to address that. And we just have to change the grade slightly on the right-hand side of this elevation in order to come in as a flat portion at the beginning, and therefore we're not encroaching into the setback that way. So that's that issue. On the parking, again, I guess we're kind of thick because we have a standard for 5 handicap spaces, one that's van accessible. And then under the green building code, we have a requirement for 7 electrical vehicle charging station parking spaces, 2 of which have to be handicapped accessible. So we thought that we had 6 spaces total, which was 1 more than what was required, but in fact, you don't get credit for the electric vehicle handicap spaces toward your 5. You have to have 5 and then 2, so now we have 7. All it involved was some restriping, moving, where the landing is, and the parking lot didn't change at all. But, so that was that issue, and I've spoke briefly with Saeed in building, and I think he's comfortable with that. Of course, he'll want to review it in plan check. Okay. So on the operational issues, I think that what was outstanding at the time of the staff report was they weren't clear what time are we going to close the bocce ball court or the pool areas, and I think they're satisfied that the condition that we'll come up with a management plan and a security plan, I think that gives them comfort, and we're comfortable with that. So I hope we've addressed all of those DMT concerns. Okay, so turning to the project, I guess I'll say one other thing. There was a mention of the OCFA, a requirement for fuel modification plan, and we're well aware of that requirement. We're confident we'll be able to meet it. The real fuel is in that canyon to the north of the project. You can see the project is set back, the building is set back quite a ways from that, and the parking field is kind of in between that. So it's something that we have to satisfy. We know that technically, if we had to make a change because of that, we could have to come back before you, and that's certainly true with the Coastal Commission review and approval too. So we understand that there's a risk of having to come back, but we're confident on the OCFA side and reasonably confident on the Coastal Commission side. Okay. Turning to the overall project, I'm not going to go into great detail on every aspect, but our design team is here to answer any questions you have, and the general manager of the golf course is also here if you have questions related to the golf. Also, when I'm done, if Omar Rawi of Greystar can follow me to discuss Greystar's vision for the senior housing, I would appreciate that. What I want to do is focus on how the project promotes important city goals. Of course, it implements the general plan and the Forester Ranch specific plan for high-density senior housing. The density range allowed for between 144 units and 236 units on the site. We're at 150, which is 86 below the maximum and pretty close to the minimum. But more than just meeting the applicable land use standards, this project provides a housing type that is increasingly in demand and in need in San Clemente, and that's active senior housing. So I'm going to scroll to, this is from a SCAG study on San Clemente, and I didn't highlight it, but if you looked in the right, it says that the biggest increase between 2010 and 2016 in our town, by a long shot, is the older demographics. And so I'm telling you what you probably already know, which is the demand for senior housing and is a growing need, and this active market, I think, is one that is important to serve. I'm kind of wonkish about housing, and one of the things that happens by having a project like this is that someone that lives in the community, I mean, we have 2 women here who came to our community meeting that came, they're interested, they live in Shorecliffs. One of them told me that she's lived in her house for 50 years. And that's exactly the type of person that if they wanted to still have their independence in an active, nice community that's kind of geared toward activities that they're interested in, they could put their house on the market, move in here, still be near their kids if their kids are around, etc. That then in turn allows that house to be put on the market for a growing family, which can then put their condo on the market and the rental houses, and so it really serves the entire housing market to have a product like this. So I think it's going to be important in that regard. In addition, because of the project's unique location, we're able to put these units in without a lot of visual or other impacts. Again, it's entirely within the golf course driving range and where the clubhouse is today. It's set back more than 400 feet from Avenida Vaquero, and it's below the height of the freeway behind it. So let me see if I can show, you saw these simulations before. This is an actual drone photo with the photorealistic simulation put in from not even at the highest point where the houses are in the community to the west of us. So that gives you a sense of how it tucks in below the freeway. Also, this is a visual simulation of the project from the freeway. And I guess we put in an arrow there because it is a little bit hard to see as you're driving by. So that you can see how it's tucked back like that. By way of comparison, the assisted living housing project on the other side is quite prominent in relation to the freeway, which also means it's be more susceptible to noise impacts from the freeway. That's an assisted living facility. We think it's great that it's in the community. I just wanted to show how that's, prominent next to the freeway, and we're tucked behind the freeway or below the freeway. Okay. I was going to mention that we even had trouble finding a vantage point that we could create a rendering that would show the relationship of the clubhouse to the senior housing. And so this is coming up from the 9th hole. And even with this slide, we had to remove landscaping that would be in the parking lot, a hedge that's around the putting green, and trees that are on the between the clubhouse and the senior housing project in order to see the architecture from this vantage point. Okay. The other thing that the project does, of course, is that it helps to boost the Shorecliffs golf course, and it does this in several ways. And first and foremost, we would have this new clubhouse, which is desperately needed, and you can see this is from recent rain. It's just holding on by bubble gum and tarps and everything we can. It could not come soon enough to build a new clubhouse. We're also adding additional parking. Right now, there are only 87 parking spaces on the project, and the parking areas will have state-of-the-art water quality treatment. There's really no treatment today with the parking that was built in the 60s. Also, the active seniors can become an additional source of users of the golf course in the clubhouse. And then also, we met with the homeowners association above the project, Chateau Clemente, and there's no guarantee. I think there's a real opportunity to share the recreational area that's below their community, which is seen where the turf is, and the courts there, which you can see are pretty dilapidated right now. There's a real opportunity for us to upgrade those to pickleball courts, maybe some raised planter beds, and also maybe a little pitching practice area, which is one of the things we lose right now with the project. Okay. I also wanted to point out some improvements quickly to the golf clubhouse and putting area subsequent to our DRSC meetings. It's hard to see, but around the putting green, we've created a hedge to screen from the parking lot, and this was a suggestion of one of the neighbors on Vaquero, which I think was a very good suggestion, and is similar to what you see at the Muni, their putting green between the street and the putting green. This neighbor, Kirk Morgan, he also suggested a better interface between the tee boxes and the clubhouse. And so we actually created some steps from the deck down to a lower terrace area, a landing area. It also has a handicap access ramp, and now there's a door into the pro shop from that side. So I was thinking, that if you tee off and shank your last ball into the creek on the left on hole 1, you can run back into the pro shop. But it really creates a better interface between the first hole and the clubhouse, and also to the extent that we're able to use that common area next to the property for a pitch and putt, that would be another benefit. So that was something we did. Okay. Lastly, we are moving to a pager system. This was something that the folks on Calle Arco would love to see. There's been a loudspeaker there since the 60s, but we think there is an opportunity to move to a pager system. We thought we may wire for a sound system in case we have to, and then someone talked about emergencies. I guess we would use a bullhorn, and we probably would have to go down the fairways anyway to tell people to get off. But for calling people to the tees themselves, with the new project, we would do a pager system. Okay. I'll try to go quickly. We are asking for a reduction in the number of covered parking stalls To reiterate, we have more than the number required of total spaces, 182, when we require 181, but each senior unit is supposed to have a covered space. We don't think there'll be demand for that. We've done surveys that show that, both some of Graystar's own projects and other neighboring projects, including a project here in San Clemente, Vintage Shores. Ladera recently, I was involved in a project recently where this study was done, and these two luxury projects are also coming in very similar at 0.81, 0.80. So we're confident that with 136, we have more than enough covered parking spaces for the seniors that will have cars in the project. And in fact, we were tempted to pursue further reductions because where it's caused us a little bit of compromise is that we have some covered parking fairly close to some ground floor units, and it'd be nice to have fewer of those. We've kept them to a minimum. If the commission's interested in reducing that further, we'd be all ears. Okay. Parking overall, and I'll end with this. For the seniors, again, we have the requisite number +1. For the golf, we have 124 versus the 87 currently. And this satisfies the parking standards, and that's treating each of the uses within the clubhouse as a standalone use. So we're parking the restaurant as if it's a standalone restaurant, the pro shop as if it's a standalone retail facility, and then the golf. Obviously, there'll be some overlap between users, but we've parked it as if there isn't any, so I think we're safe there. This is a photo of aerial photo of the Muni, and it, by way of comparison, has 126 parking spaces for a larger clubhouse with a driving range and with the ability to have weddings up to 220 people. Now, the reality is that people, because it's convenient, and if it's overflowing, they will park on the street at the Muni. That happens. I think it, but I don't think that will happen with the Shorecliffs project with the parking that we have, and it's not our intention to have special events like weddings. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out that there is literally over 500 lineal feet on each side of Vaquero, starting at the frontage of the project, going inland under the freeway, where there aren't any competing uses. And so, God forbid there were any overflow parking, there's 1,000 lineal feet in front of the project. Okay. So again, I'd like to thank Amy and the entire city, this commission, and the community for helping us with this project. As I mentioned, my son's turning 22 today. When I started working on this project, I was 45, and I'm about to be 55, and I'm eligible to move into this project if we get it done. So I'm ready to do that, and so I'm asking with all respect if we can please approve this project tonight, move it on so we can roll up our sleeves with the Coastal Commission. We would be most appreciative. And if you'll indulge me, I'll let
Well,
around.
before you step away, I think Commissioner Brown has a question. You might even mention the operating hours?
Pardon me now?
The operating hours of the golf course?
So you're comfortable with the conditions of the new change to the operating hours, and you can now move your golf carts around before 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning and all that stuff?
Yes, that was one that caught us a little bit off guard, but we met with Adam and we were able to work through. His concern was that we have moved where the cart cleanup area is. The cart barn is closer to some residences incrementally, but it is closer and it's not behind, so I'm
I
very happy.
emailed Amy on a similar situation, give him the Muni hours, because I sat down with Gus, so on your behalf.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And you did remind me, Commissioner Brown, about this ambient sound question. I guess I was assuming when they were talking about amplified sound that they were talking about concerts, wedding events, or the loudspeaker that's typically used for golf courses and is used at the Muni and is used at Shorecliffs today. So I was fine with that condition. I guess, we would like to be able to play music inside our senior facility and also inside the clubhouse. We're not blaring and having a rock concert just by virtue of a radio. We don't want to abuse the rule.
I would suggest that you go back and think about it and come forward to the city after this thing as a separate CUP of some sort and give it some thought, because seniors, like, you have a whole senior entertainment section in that building that you're saying you're not going to do anything. You got a kitchen there, you got an outdoor swimming pool, and I think seniors like to party. And then you've got the clubhouse itself, and no amplified sound. I know Oldie's Tavern has a tournament there every summer, because they give all the proceeds to the Boys and Girls Club, and there's prizes, and the guy's on the microphone, and they're drawing tickets, and you won the golf club or whatever. And so you're saying you can't do any of that. Is what how you think of how you operate when you have a tournament comes in, or a charity event or something like that. So I think you need to sit back and think about it and come back to the city with an overall plan of what you want, because there's a lot of conditions that on the dais here tonight could get very complicated, but and we'll really pile on you because we know how to do that when it comes to sound. And so I really think you ought to give it some thought.
I think that's an excellent idea. I can tell you what our thought process was, that, again, first and foremost, we have a modest clubhouse. I think it's going to be a well-designed and very functional clubhouse, but it's not as large as most of these clubhouses that have separate functional space, for events or weddings. But to the extent that there were going to be tournaments or something that had a taco truck or something, the thought was that we would do a special activity permit for those. And then if it does turn out that that it becomes almost programmatic, then it would be correct to come in with some sort of CUP. But that was kind of the thought process.
I think the senior in your senior quarters is going to come to you and say, where's the Friday night happy hour around the pool over at the senior center too? So you got to think it out a little bit and come back, because you got a ways to go before you start breaking ground.
Very good. We kind of exceeded our 10-minute presentation here.
Sorry.
Do you have a specific question for this part of the applicant?
I do. It's a question about the lighting.
Let's do that during discussion.
You want to do that? Sure, that's fine. Okay.
And I have a card from Omar Rawi, but would you like to make your presentation now, since we're interested in the operation of the the senior project also?
Okay. Sorry, let me speak into this. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. I thought I would just spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about Greystar, the company I'm here representing, and then just a little bit more about what it is we're proposing on this site, and what an active adult project is, what we're building, and what does that actually mean. So with that, a little bit about Greystar. We're a leader in the rental housing industry with 3 core businesses: development, investment, property management. A very large presence domestically and internationally in over 150 markets. This is actually a little old. I think that number is 180 today. On the development side, we have a pipeline of 55 active development projects in over 40 cities. And by far our biggest business line is property management, with close to 500,000 units and beds with our new student housing acquisition across the country and abroad. And I think this is important because in Greystar you get a company with tremendous resources and reach and experience, but also a commitment to Southern California. We have a local office here. Our development team is based in Orange County, and we have a large property management presence with close to 120 communities under management in Southern California. Mark touched on this, but our key business is market rate rental housing, but a number of years ago we identified really an overwhelming trend, demographic trend, and that's the aging baby boomer population and an underserved need for rental housing, specifically targeting that demographic. So we've made a really big push into that space, and specifically in senior housing, we have close to 40 developed properties under development across the country. Closest one to here being one that I personally just completed in Scottsdale, Arizona. We've also acquired a number of existing buildings and have a small number of communities that we manage on behalf of third parties. So, what we're proposing for this site is what we call active adult. And so what does that mean? So we have a little chart here that I think is informative. And it's often easier to describe what it isn't than what it is. So on the right, you have needs and care-based senior housing options, and that's your independent living, assisted living, and memory care. Memory care being the highest acuity with a variety of services, meals, housekeeping, transportation, nursing care, and as you go to the left, it tapers off a bit. But we're in that choice-based column. We're not service-based, we're activities and amenities-based. So people choose to live in our communities not because they need something, but because they're missing something. And that's most often a social outlet, a sense of community, relationships with their peers. The majority of our residents in our portfolio are single, so they're looking to come into our community and make friends and enrich their social lives. So to illustrate that point, this is the actual calendar of activities from my project in Arizona for the month of March. So you'll see on a daily basis, all kinds of movie night, exercise classes, bridge club, et cetera. So it's a really rich and vibrant community that our staff puts together on a monthly and daily basis even. And then, now just some pretty pictures. Some of the projects that we've developed and opened across the country. This one in San Antonio, Texas, Austin, Texas. We have a lot of presence in Texas. This is the Arizona project I referenced, the kind of unit interior project in Dallas, and then one on the East Coast in Virginia Beach. And with that, as Mark mentioned, our team is here to answer any questions you may have, and thanks again for allowing us to be here tonight, and we respectfully ask that you approve the project and allow us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Talley.
Yeah, just one moment before you step down. Can you go back a couple slides to that calendar? So kind of dovetailing on what Commissioner Brown was saying, I believe some of these issues would require the use of amplified sound inside, especially if you've got exercise classes and you're dealing with amplified voice and some of those others. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, again, I think, we might have had a misunderstanding of exactly what the intent of that limitation was. You're correct that, there will be some, a fitness instructor that might, use a little bit of amplification, some music, lots of events. I mean, we didn't anticipate, a big outdoor music performance or things like that, but there's certainly, an active social calendar here that might, make a little bit of noise.
I'm like looking at the karaoke night and thinking about things like that.
Sure.
Is potentially, we do have a fairly stringent sound ordinance, so.
Yeah, I guess from, when I was looking at those conditions, I didn't imagine practically anything, any sound carrying beyond our four walls, so, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the, we're talking about inside those four walls in some respects, right? Yeah. So, something to probably try to.
Okay. I would make sure, Mr. McGuire, get your hands around what you need for a noise thing and come back, with a properly laid out thing for both buildings and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
And so both parties understand there is the ability to get X number of special event permits over the course of the years, just the way the outlets did. So there are ways to do that before you get the CUP amended or whatever for whatever sound issues you want to do. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will close the presentation portion. Open it to public comment. I see we had one card from Mr. Wawi that, since you had a chance to speak during presentation, we'll pass on. So I will close the public comment and open for discussion. Do we have any discussion? Commissioner?
Yeah, I actually had a question for the applicant regarding one of the pages. It was actually on page, when you open the big sheets, L6. There was kind of a lighting diagram showing landscape lighting and parking lighting. They were color-coded, but I couldn't find a legend on that. So I thought maybe you could spend a couple of minutes talking about the types of lighting that you plan to, outdoor lighting that you plan to have in there.
Yeah, so I'm bringing up the landscape architect also, Dan Dell. But I did want to say, in response to a comment you made during Design Review Subcommittee, we have eliminated the uplighting for the signs, including the wayfinding signs.
I saw that, I appreciate that.
So it'd be just backlit, halo, or, the pin lettering, and so no more backlighting. And obviously, we're going to comply with all the cutoff requirements for the signs. And I think there is a guide, but you want to speak to what the different codes meant?
Yeah, so Dan Deli with MJS. You mentioned there was not a legend on
I
your...
couldn't find one, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see one on the page, so.
Full size, unfortunately.
Yeah. Can we give you the...
I have
bring
the-
it up.
I have this,
Yeah,
but,
yeah. There is a legend located on the plan. The plan of attack is to do vehicular lighting, making sure that's a safe environment. We do have pole lights at the pool area and some at the outdoor entertainment space with the bocce ball. But like he mentioned, no uplights, full cutoffs. We're very sensitive to light in this area, obviously, but we do need to create a safe environment throughout the space. And this will go through, full photometrics through plan check as well to ensure that there is no light spillage onto the adjacent neighbors or the hillside.
That's kind of what I'm most concerned about, the people, there's a dozen or so houses up on the hillside,
Yeah.
so, but, yeah, if you're downlighting, I just wanted to make sure, I apologize, I don't know why I missed the legend on the larger sheet, so, okay, thank you.
Okay, before I recognize Commissioner Talley here, I do want to say that we did receive a letter from Jay and Kumi Elston supporting the project, and I see we had a couple of members in the audience that were here also in support of the project. So, Commissioner Talley.
Yeah, my comments will be brief. I think we went, the general plan was amended. I appreciate the historic renderings there. That probably occurred, Don, when you weren't eligible to move into the...
How do you know?
Yeah. I think this is consistent with the general plan and the specific amendments that we made several years ago. It feels like that was just yesterday, so I'm starting to sense that passage of time. I would encourage you to really take a look at the sound ramifications here and to come up with a plan to get that addressed sooner rather than later. I think that's one of those things that you don't want to have dangling out there. And it's probably easier while this is fresh in everybody's mind to deal with it than down the road when it may not be as fresh. I think a lot of work has been put in this. I think it'll be an improvement for the area, and I'm supportive.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes, I'm going to be supportive of the project. I think it's been a long time coming. I think I came on the Planning Commission about the time Mr. McGuire started working on this project. I think he bought his first tie tonight, or was that the one you got married in? I'm not sure. But it's had a long history as we went through the general plan and how we worked our way through it. And it became essential in about 2012 because we injected this into our housing element. And it was one of the projects that got our housing element, another special chapter or book in our general plan, across the finish line at Sacramento and HCD, including Hocking, this building that we're sitting in. And so there was a lot of other things at play here as this project really matured, as we went from the 500 room resort and how we went to the Coastal Commission, and they made us, okay, you can take that away, but you got to make up for it in other areas. They were very kind and not giving an inch. So there was a lot at play on this project that, as we went through the general plan, that played with the Coastal Commission, played with our housing element and other things besides just our general plan and our Forest Area specific plan. It's been a long time coming. I think it's a good quality project. Thanks for DRSC and the applicant and staff for putting together. I think it looks very nice. I saw the early, more modern renderings, and I'm really more happy with what came through here now. And so I am going to be supporting the project going forward. And Amy, thanks for hanging with us on this project. And I know this is your last one, and I'd like to acknowledge your great efforts that you contributed to the city in the last couple of years as you've been here as a contract hire with your other Amy in crime and Amy Vasquez. So you've been a great help, and you've handled a lot of tough projects, and I want to thank you for your presence and hanging on here. So anyway, that's all I want to say.
Very good. I'm going to jump in real quick myself and just say, Amy, thank you for sticking with it. I also want to say that the CEQA document in here I thought was extremely well done and easy to follow because it walked you right through every decision that had to be made, and I found it not overwhelming. So very good on that. Having lived with it a little while through the design review, it came a long ways, and I think they got to where it needed to be, and I am obviously in support of the project and the parking waivers. I don't see any problem with having the fewer covered stalls. We've got all the parking we needed, and if it ever became an issue, they could be covered. You're probably going to be in, when you get your building permit, mandatory solar, I would assume. So that's a good place to put it. And Commissioner Rulon.
Yeah, thanks. I was on the General Plan Advisory Committee when you first came to talk to us, so I'm not sure I appreciate you reminding me how many years ago that was. So yeah, this has certainly been a long time coming. I know you guys have jumped through a lot of hoops, and I appreciate that, and like my other colleagues on design review appreciate how far the design has come. I hope you'll forgive me. I have a little bit of disappointment because we did talk about some distinctive architectural element, be that a tower or a mural or some sort of, crafting that gave it a little more distinctive look, as far as it has come and as much as you have done. If you guys see fit to add something, add some artwork or something like that, I think this is a particularly large building for our city, obviously, and usually what we see with these projects is something that kind of says, oh, that place with that, that driveway entrance, or the place with that tile work or something like that. So, that it might be nice. I think you'd fit even a little better into the community if you were able to work in something like that as you finish your process. But I think other than that, there's a lot here, a lot of moving parts, but they've been put together, and I won't bore you by repeating my colleagues' comments, but I certainly agree with them. So thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Brown, if you'd like to make a motion, I think it would also include the comments by our city attorney and the errata.
And we'll stand by and help me out here, Amy and Mal. Okay, I recommend we adopt resolution PC number 19-006, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Clemente, California, approving architectural permit 17-340, site plan permit 17-339, conditional use permit 17-338, discretionary sign permit set 19-076 for the Shorecliffs Senior Apartments and Golf Clubhouse to demolish an existing golf clubhouse and construct a new 150-unit, 4-story senior apartment complex and a new golf clubhouse at 501 Avenida Vaquero, accessor parcel number 691-231-06, with the additions of the amended conditions of approval as presented to the dais tonight and discussed, and the wording changes to the various sections of our wills and shalls and shoulds as offered by the city attorney. Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Brown, a second by Talley. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations. And good luck at the Coastal Commission.
I didn't recognize you at the time, Mark.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I just couldn't get it.
Thank you very much.
Maybe I've seen this brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Brown, we've got new business, and you wanted to, we're all the way to the walkout here.
Maybe the Community Development Director might be able to help us with this.
Is Cecilia still there?
Yes, she is. So I did send
This is
a
new business.
note today to the acting city planner and you, and I'd like a clarification. Good luck, Amy. Okay, maybe they'll call you back when we have a shortage or something. I have a concern and I want a clarification. Tomorrow on your schedule is a facade remodel to a shopping mall that's in the gateway, and it's going to the zoning administrator. And why is that? How did it qualify for that and not the planning commission since it's in a gateway? And the building across the street went to the planning commission. A shopping center across the freeway went to the planning commission. So what was the paradigm of your thought process of why it got settled out
Actually,
there?
I'm going to defer that technical question to Stephanie, and then if there's anything I can add to it, I will.
Well, since you normally are the zoning administrator, I'm glad to make sure you're part of the conversation.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Brown, thank you for the question. That's an excellent question. So what happened with that project? It's a little bit, It's been ever evolving, and we actually are putting together a memo to try to address the changes in the project scope of work. Unfortunately, just due to some of the staff vacancies and the high staff workloads, we haven't been able to send out that memo, providing that update and clarification to the planning commissioners as well as our design review subcommittee members. But essentially what happened is that the applicant requested to phase this overall project into two different phases. The first phase would be just the facade renovation for the shopping center itself. The reason that they are requesting this change to be able to phase it is because there are some time limitations related to their lease obligations with a brand new restaurant, Cafe Rio, which would be occupying their end tenant suite. And because of their obligations.
When is Cafe Rio coming? That's like one of my favorite restaurants.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
they're in
that's
plan,
the one I run, but
you know,
yeah.
they're in plan check right now, and it depends on how quickly the facade renovations take, because that is one of the stipulations of the lease agreement, and that was the reason why there were just timing impacts that would affect the overall facade improvements. But there have been a number of changes. It's been a constantly evolving project. So, for example, one of the things that was being considered for some time was the demolition of the former Crispin's restaurant building, and they were with this project. It was being reviewed and excluding that restaurant building because there was always that separate application for the America's Tires facility. And so unfortunately that project is no longer moving forward. The anchor tenant, Stater Brothers, did not sign off on the proposed changes that were being proposed in conjunction with America's Tires. So with that, the property owner is now proposing to demolish that building overall and build a brand new building closer to the street frontage. And so they completely understand that demolishing that and building a brand new building will require an architectural permit, a site plan permit, you know, the full 9 yards, and that it will have to go through DRSC. And so because there is those timing limitations with regard just to the facade renovations that would benefit Cafe Rio as well as the rest of the center, they did request to be able to break up the project into two different phases. And so the first phase is just the facade improvement for the buildings, and based on the thresholds that are specified in our code, because they're not proposing to add any new buildings or demolish any buildings, just because it's a facade renovation, it can be reviewed as a minor architectural permit, which is subject to zoning administrator review and purview.
So where's Cafe Rio going in that center?
It would be the end suite, which is closest to
Estrella.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So close, next to Rose's?
Right.
So basically.
And the wall gets eliminated, the access wall gets eliminated between the two shopping centers?
So that would be packaged as part of the much larger Phase 2. So the scope of Phase 2, and granted this application has not been submitted just yet, they're just trying to move forward with the facade renovations, but Phase 2 would include it would include demolishing the former Christmas restaurant building, building a brand new building, removing the wall that separates it from the Trader Joe's Center, so providing more connectivity between those two centers.
I get more questions on that in the community than probably anything else.
Right, yeah. And so there were a number of questions that came up with that, as well as just upgrading the landscaping, proposing a comprehensive master sign program for the entire center. So the Phase 2 is much more involved. And again, you know, they are, they have indicated that they fully understand the permitting requirements with that, but they have requested to, separate these two different projects because of the timing impacts of the facade renovations.
The process here is what disturbed me, because this is a gateway. And we wrote, and three of us up here went through 40 meetings on that general plan, and so we kind of have a lot of it memorized. And probably one of the most effective chapters that we created and emphasized over and above the zones of inference is that gateway chapter in the general plan, which requires, increased architectural requirements, our entry statements. And so it's a very important chapter, and that is definitely a gateway. And so that's where I think the choice, the code needs to rethink, or staff needs to recalibrate. If it's a gateway, it's a planning commission effort. I'm sorry, it's just a facade change, and we have a little contract issue with a restaurant, and that's a rush to judgment. And so I'm disturbed and concerned about that. And so I want both of you to carry away from this that in the future, that it's a gateway project in this town. It's important, okay? And it requires ultimate scrutiny, because that's we've made a more dramatic change in this town with that gateway chapter and the various projects that have come to town. And you start just lining them up right where you're at on this tough subject, and it'll go all the way to the south end of town. And every one of those has gone to the Planning Commission. And this is the first one that it's not. And I'm disappointed in that decision. So going forward in the future, take that and keep that in mind. Okay?
Duly noted.
Very good. We're still on new business, and I would just request, Cecilia, if possible, you might work with Chris, right? And see if there's any way we can better define for our purposes the extent we can go down a street and still call it a gateway. It doesn't pertain to this project because it really is on the gateway, but is it a couple of lots? Is it a block? It's not really defined.
Okay.
It's, you know, we took it all the way, I think, to Starbucks on Pico.
Yes,
And, you know,
that's true,
how far
right.
could you go up? I mean, it would be nice for us and applicants to know.
What areas we're talking
Yeah,
about specifically.
yeah.
Okay, yes, absolutely. We'll look at that.
One more thing. For the record, I'm going to be absent for the next meeting, by the way.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Talley.
So I'm going to be absent from the April 3rd meeting because that's spring break. I know there's a pending traffic, I guess, proposal that's on Veracruz over by Truman Benedict and the Bernice Ayers schools.
Okay.
For traffic control. And I'd like to request that that not be agendized on that April 3rd meeting if possible. Because I'd like to be here for that since I travel that several times a day. Yeah. I know traffic's been working on that hard, so. Sure.
Okay, we're still on new business?
I just want to clarify, you're going to Fort Lauderdale for spring break, is that what you're saying?
Going to Utah. I'm going to Cafe Rio in Utah.
There you go. Okay, so we will close new business and open old business. Do we have any old business? I see none. Reports from commissioners and staff? No comments, so do we have an adjournment motion?
I'll move.
Excuse me.
I do actually have a couple of announcements that I just wanted to read into the record. So recently, the City Council adopted a policy to begin using Rosenberg's Rules of Order. Currently, the city uses Robert's Rules of Order, and the city clerk did ask for staff to provide an update to the Planning Commission because these new procedures will become effective April 4th, 2019. And if Mal is still there, he can probably just elaborate on what the changes would be, if any.
This will be a complicated elaboration.
It better not require wearing a tie.
These changes require bow ties, actually, Mr. Chairman. This change will not impact you at all. Rosenberg's Rules of Order are a simplified procedural scheme, but we run things very well here, and this will have no impact on the commission unless you guys start acting squirrely, in which case it will have a significant impact.
There's always that possibility.
But there's no impact on what we do here.
Thank you very much, Mel.
Only if they ban leaf blowers and leaf lanes.
Yeah. Okay, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Sure. I'll move we adjourn to the next regular meetings of the Study Session and Planning Commission to be held on March 20th, 2019 at 6 p.m. in the council chambers located at 100 Avenue Presidio, San Clemente, California.
Second.
Okay, motion by Rule and second by Brown. All in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0. Thank you very much.